So Korniy Hrytsiuk is coming from Donetsk. He's a Ukrainian director and screenwriter. And also 2 years ago, we presented already his movie, his debut movie, 2020, Deserted Country. Milan Zaitsev comes from Kostyantynivka. It's the city, the town in Donetsk region. He worked for 6 years in the charity Vostok SOS or East SOS, and was a coordinator of humanitarian program on the front line, and currently he works in the media development company. I would say now a couple of words in case not everyone is aware about the situation on the east of Ukraine. So the war between Ukraine and Russia occurred in 2014 and continues till nowadays. Around 13,000 people died as a result of the war. Around 3,300 civilians, around 4,100 were Ukrainian military, and around 5,700 were from the Donetsk region, from Russia, from DNR, that is from Gromadske source. Since 2014, there is 1,700,000 people from Donetsk and Lugansk region who became internally displaced people, meaning those who was forced to leave their home, but who remain within their country borders. Short about German support, Germany provides a big assistance for these people by helping to rebuild social infrastructure like humanitarian help to cover rent, additional support to kindergarten, and also they maintain emergency shelters in Ukraine. The so-called assistance is called an action plan for Ukraine, in which numerous federal ministries and implementing organizations are working together. Yeah, that was my introduction short about the East Side situation. Korniy and Milan, I hope I introduced you correctly. In case I missed something or you want to add some words, you are always welcome. If not, I can move forward. So firstly, before I start with questions, I want you to imagine that we are sitting in the room and you're super welcome to chat with each other, not only me and you, but Korniy and Milan. Also, in case you have additional questions to each other, ask them. Also, people, you are more than welcome to ask questions in the chat at the end. I hope we will have time, and I will ask also these questions. So let us start. First question to you, Korniy. Thank you for the movie. I hope everyone already watched it. I watched it, was amazing. I even cried a couple of times. Could you please tell firstly the idea of the movie? Where did you get the inspiration and why now?
First, thank you for your feedback about movie. I like that you like this film. Probably sorry for my not perfect English, because for last year, quarantine year, I have never been. I have been only in Ukraine, and probably I forget English, but I can try to explain something. So about inspiration, inspiration is because of in Donbass live some of my relatives, and I was a passenger of this train. I was a man who meet some people from this train. So I was in this train many times. I saw people in this train, and I heard some discussion in this train. And when I was first time in this train, I think that maybe it's a very interesting place to shoot a movie about these real people. They have amazing stories. This is not fiction stories, true stories about war, about this life in today's Ukraine between peace and war. And probably after that, maybe 2 years, I tried to found finance in Ukraine for this movie. It was very hard because we with producer we did probably 3 times to get money from Ukrainian film foundation, but sometimes we receive feedback that our movie is not patriotical movie, and our country can't support film where people can say very bad things about Ukraine. But Ukrainian Culture Foundation is more modern organization in Ukraine, and in 2019 they support this project, and we start to produce this film.
I have a little question. Did Ukrainian railway, Укрзалізниця, Ukrainian railway, I don't know, system also supported you?
They was our partner, but we bought every ticket for this train. But they help to us in some logistic question, in organization questions. They because this train is very popular, and sometimes it's very hard to buy tickets to this train in Kyiv. But we always can to buy these tickets because they help us. They always give some possibilities to buy these tickets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So did they help with advertisement?
Укрзалізниця, this Ukrainian railway company, is a big state corporation, and during our work with this film, probably they have many changes, and in one period they help us, in second period they don't want to tell about this movie, so it was very difficult situations, but the most probably perfect for us was that they don't do bad things for us. So they sometimes they don't help, but they don't do nothing bad for us.
I hope they didn't kick out you from the train or something like, oh, yeah, again, these guys. Nice, really nice. Milan, question to you. Did you watch the movie?
Yeah, of course.
What was your first impression? I know that you are coming from Kostyantynivka, so do people in this train represent the overall attitude?
Yes, I think so. So I liked the movie a lot because it's not very long, but it was shot in a nice and an interesting way. Though it's only inside the train, and it seems like nothing to show and nothing else. But so guys managed to find good pictures of railway stations, landscapes during the shooting and all these hours. And in fact, it's there is some movement all the time. So I liked this, and in general, yes, there are many opinions on different issues, of course, and each person has some personal story, and of course, when you could not live this story, sometimes it's not possible to understand another person. And that is one of the reasons why people quite often do not understand each other or don't want to understand. That's why there are some conflicts because personal feelings, they cannot be transmitted sometimes.
Yeah. You mean, if I understood you correctly, do you mean that, like, if you are in the wagon with a person who you don't understand, in which position, according to this problem, you don't understand, in normal life, you can leave the conversation, I don't know, the room.
Yeah.
But this one is like you are 12 hours with these people, so you need to kind of hear. You cannot just fall asleep.
Yes, sure. But I think so. The film reflects different opinions, and it's shown quite at a good level. So nothing to add.
Okay, so questions to you guys. Which story or character was the most memorable for you Oh, and the second question, which one was the most bizarre? Like you don't understand this person. First question to Korniy, after question to Milan.
It's very probably right now it's very hard to remember all the story, because in this film we can see maybe only third part of material, because we have many stories but not all stories we can put in this film. But for me, all this probably I will answer on both questions in one. For me, all people in this film, in this train, I can't say that I like or love all these people, but I can probably understand these people because they really live between peace and war, between Kyiv and Donbass, and it's very hard to. Of course, if some peoples are really pro-Russian people, and I, as a citizen of Ukraine, I don't understand their point of mind. Yeah, but I can understand that they have really hard life, really hard situation, and probably all these stories they share these stories with me. It was not hidden camera. It was they understand what we are doing, and I really love and respect all these people because they share it with me and with people who will watch this movie.
Milan, what do you think?
So I remembered the story of the lady who is the conductor, yeah, of the train. So a worker, and her story how it was in 2014 when she actually crossed the invisible border at that time during the last month of work of Ukrzaliznytsia between Donetsk and the rest of Ukraine. So it's quite impressive. And the most bizarre man who was quite drunk and added all the time some points with his last minimum. This is at the beginning. So I thought why you were filming him all the time, but then so I finally understand because it's just it shows
another point of view.
Another point of view, but at the same time, how people, what people do during all these hours during when they go, and finally they have to speak about something sometimes, and so.
Yeah. In case someone doesn't remember the story with the conductor lady, so she said that when she was talking with one of the passenger, and he was like, yeah, and this Ukrainian military guys came into my yard and asked for the water, and I was like, I will show you the water. And after he said to this lady, and now you could actually kind of found them in the backyard under the ground at my place, and I was like, oh. So yeah, in case not everyone remember, Korniy, question to you. So we are talking about filming the movie. As long as I understand, you didn't make only one trip. And how long did it take to shoot the movie, and difficulties during this shooting?
It was probably I think 25 or 30 nights in train. This movie.
Nights. So back to Kostyantynivka and.
Yeah, it was like 25 or 30 trips between these cities, and yeah, it was maybe it was not so hard because our usually in film industry working day is like 8 hour or 10 hour or 12 hour, but in our case it was smaller because train started at night from Kyiv to Donbass, and we have maybe 2 hours before people going sleep, and back way it was maybe two or 3 hours before people start sleeping. So it was physically for our crew not so hard, but it was probably hard after first 2 or 3 weeks, because this process was maybe 1 month or one month and a half. And so probably in the half of this way, it was emotionally a little bit hard, because you people share with you a lot of really hard stories. And when you shoot movie, when you're shooting, you don't think, but when you go to sleep or you have some time like pause between shooting days, you began to thinking about the stories. And it was sometimes it was really terrible, because you hear really bad story, bad things, but you can't help or change something in these people's life.
So basically, did you help anyone? No.
Some people say to me that when they share these stories, it was big help for these people, because they don't told the story don't told to anybody. And I am not a psychotherapist, of course, but sometimes it can help you when you speak about something in your soul to another people, and sometimes it can help you. And some people say to me that this process was not stress, it was like help for these people.
Why they didn't tell anyone? Like, I mean, for instance, these people are now situated, placed in Kyiv and live in Kyiv. Don't they share? Do they, like, are they ashamed?
Sometimes shade, sometimes people say that I am just ordinary, or I am small man in big city in Kyiv or in Kostyantynivka, and nobody interested interested in my life, and they have these stories inside, and they don't want to say to another people. And it was like therapy, small therapy for these people.
I wouldn't ask you, Korniy, because like I want to ask the question, if you have this, if you had this feeling, but you, Korniy, shot the movie about your feelings. I mean, in the sense of other people. But Milan, did you have this feeling that you don't want to talk about the problem?
So I could just add to what was said, that many people in our country and prefer not to speak about own problems. It's inside the culture, and it's different from the European cultures, where to go to a psychologist, for example, it's more like a norm. But here, people usually prefer to be silent, and it causes new problems, psychological problems, when you try to close yourselves, and it doesn't help it at all. So we worked. My colleagues, when we worked a lot with the affected population on the front line, it was quite often the same. The residents could just start to speak, and it was a great relief for them, because some strangers came for one day, for a couple of hours, and they can just listen to you, and this helps. So such a simple, extremely simple thing, but it helps.
Yeah, thank you. And Milan, do you have?
I totally agree. Totally agree, because it's real Ukrainian stereotype, or it's inside in our people, that people don't like to share stories. So I totally agree with Milan.
I think it's so important to share, because, like, for instance, with this movie, I mean, not like I forgot about the war, but I kind of like, it's really important to remind yourself that there is something more than Kyiv and peaceful situation. And when you see like these blog posts, it's impressive. Do you have guys, people, your relatives in the war zone or Kostyantynivka? How is the life there from their experience? Do they live there still?
I can answer. I can be the first. So yeah, actually, my grandmother lives in Kostyantynivka, but she's maybe too old to go into details about all these things. And for example, in Donetsk itself, that is now occupied. So I have not many, but almost all my friends of my age, they fled to Ukraine or to Russia, to somewhere else. Doesn't matter where, but they preferred to go out in 2014, I guess. And almost no one decided to stay except several people, especially those elderly who cannot find any job, any other place to live, and that causes new problems, and they prefer to stay even if it's dangerous, even there are no means to live there, but they want to stay at home. But the rest, so for example, many people I knew, they are somewhere else, but not there.
Korniy, do you have the same experience?
To my grandmothers still living in Donetsk, in occupied territory, but yeah, but they of course they say that life is very hard on these territories, but they are probably too old to change something in their life, because when you are 75 or 80, it's really hard to go to another city. When you have relatives in another city, it's also very hard. And of course last year, because of corona crisis, it's more harder, because people they are in this in Donetsk, like in some hole, because if this way was very hard 2 years ago, what I shown in my film, to get from I don't know, occupied territory to free Ukraine. But right now it's more harder, because you have only one way. You have to go to Russia first, and then from Russia you can go to Kharkiv, because this territory, DNR and LNR, they are like closed from Ukraine, from another world, because of pandemic. And 2 years ago, this trip was maybe 6 hours between Donetsk and Kostyantynivka. But right now, this trip between Donetsk and Kostyantynivka can be 30 hours, because you have to go to Russia, and it's really only one opportunity to get to Ukraine.
So let's formulate it.
That's true. That the last year it became much. It became just terrible for the population that lives on the occupied territory, but also for people who are here, and they have some deals, some relatives who, I don't know, died, for example. They cannot cross the checkpoints. And now the situation is like this, that Ukraine opens each of the checkpoints, but from the other side they don't want to pass people, and it's extremely difficult for those who decided to cross it. So there are a few checkpoints on working mode, and so the number of people who cross on a daily basis is much less than a year and a half ago, for example. So with the corona crisis, it's much difficult for them. And yeah, one of the possible ways is to go through Russia, but it takes much longer, of course. And just the, so to say, the short way could not be possible for people, because so the occupied, the administration of the occupied territories, they have some kind of exceptions to go through. For the rest, the answer is no. And unfortunately,
what are these exceptions?
It can be like if you have some testimonies that your relatives in danger, they died or something like this. But it's not written, you know. That's why just people try to understand whether it's there is sense to go or not. Because, for example, the last year, the 2 new checkpoints, exit checkpoints, were opened in the Lugansk region, but they are not working. And from the side of Ukraine, they are open, and just people can go, but from the other side, they are not allowed to go.
So basically, the train Kyiv-Kostyantynivka is not that full now, as I understand, as was described in the movie.
I'm not sure. But yeah, many of those people cannot go.
I think there are also a lot of bribes involved now with crossing the border from the occupied territory to Ukraine.
Well, during all these times, there were different schemas, because when you don't have an official border, okay, that's that's quite evident. But yeah, now it's worse because the biggest part of those who crossed the border were the elderly, so the pensioners who went here each month or 2 months to get their pensions. And because, of course, on the occupied territories, there are no ATMs like this, and banks don't work.
How, like, for instance, now your grandmothers are going through Russia to get their
So my grandmother and my parents, they live on the liberated territory, so my relatives don't have such problems.
But Korniy, your relatives are in Donetsk. Are they going through Russia now?
No, they are too old for trips like that through Russia, and so they are just in Donetsk. But last probably summer, my father was in Donetsk. He did this trip to Russia, to Donetsk, and they, of course, gave some money to my grandmothers, and they can live with this money. But of course, situation is not very bad. But I wanted to add that Milan said that, of course, when you haven't official border, but you have a lot of scams to get money to this territory to old people. So some scams working today, and you can, if you have money in Ukraine, you can send this money, of course, not Western Union, but you can send this money to this territory with some not illegal scams.
Okay. I would like to ask to start asking questions from the chat, from Alexandra, of course. First question. She's saying, thank you very much for this great movie. How is the situation with the human rights in occupied region of the eastern Ukraine and in the region which are near to the war front line?
I can start. Along the front line from our side, the situation is, of course, better because there is almost everything people need in big cities, at least. In villages, they have problems, but infrastructure, some law enforcement, some police, some pharmacies, magazines, so the infrastructure works not great as previously, but at least there are pensions, there are some payments, social benefits. On the occupied part, it's worse because so in fact there is no official statistics, there is no official administration there, and so in fact it's very difficult to understand what is the real life there, and because there is no easy access for journalists to go there. So as you know, DNR and LNR, they banned even foreign journalists, and they banned humanitarian, even international humanitarian organizations, and just a few of them are working on in some mode, but it's not as it was, let's say, 5 years ago. And so of course the situation with human rights, as you know, from time to time we have new political prisoners, as they are called, and
you
so
mean Ukraine has political prisoners from
no.
the occupied
On those territory, people could be brought to a kind of prison, and they can become like political prisoners. But in fact, they become hostages of those armed people, and their status now, at least in Ukrainian legislation, we have this status that illegally detained people. But the thing is that there everyone can be caught. And
what do you need to do to become a political prisoner in occupied territory? They are not running with a Ukrainian flag over the streets.
Yeah, but still you can post something with the flag, or someone could find a photo with you, or remember some your activity, or just without no reason. By the way, of course, one of the reasons, if you have some business or money, and they can use this to earn money in this way, though it's much more centralized there, but still there are gangs, and from time to time they can just catch people to earn in this way.
Crazy. Korniy, you have couple of grandmothers in occupied territories. Couple of grandmothers. You have 2 grandmothers. Was that true, what Milan said about occupied territories? Are they a bit involved in human rights, and what is their perspective?
I think it's I probably agree with Milan, because it's very hard to talk about this territory and about context of human right, because we haven't any statistic, we haven't any database, any information about this territory, and of course it is very hard life. But my grandmothers, they are probably very old, and they of course are not political activity, maybe 30 years, and of course they understand that life is bad, that it was when it was Ukraine, but it's thank you to God they haven't Facebook, and they can't post something pro-Ukrainian. But my friend, he was in this movie, he was in prison in DNR 2 years, because some people in DNR, they remember that he was member of Euromaidan in Donetsk. And after 2 or 3 years, when this territory was occupied, some people remember it, and they catch him when he came to his parents only for weekends. They catch him, and he was 2 years in prison, and it was very hard.
He was 2 years in prison, and after he got released, and where does he live now?
He lives now in Kyiv. He was a member of big people changes, last big people changes when it was President Poroshenko. President Poroshenko met him in airport, and right now he living in Kyiv. He work in media as a journalist, but it was, of course, it was very big trauma for him, because 2 years of his life he was in prison, and it was when he said some things about this period is very hard to hear it.
Yeah,
I
and
was also
that is the reason why people just avoid any topics being there, because it can be just dangerous. So they try to be silent as possible and to be neutral to all sides, because being there, you try to just survive and not to face new problems.
I wanted to say, when I was checking Korniy's CV, I saw that you studied at Donetsk at the University of Sus. Am I
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And after I was just checking where is this university now, I checked that it's now in Ukraine, in the Vinnytsia city.
yeah, yeah.
But also at the same time, the same university is in Donetsk, but like almost all teachers are from Russia.
Not all. Many my teachers, they still working in Donetsk, in this Donetsk National University, because some teachers moved with official university to Vinnytsia,
Yeah.
but some people they stay in Donetsk and they still to continue their work in this university. And right now it's like typical pro-Russian university.
Did they stay because they wanted to stay or because they didn't want to go?
Many, it's in general, it is very hard to answer to this question because a lot of many people, many stories, many reasons to stay. Somebody probably love Russia, Russian world, and this situation. Maybe somebody haven't opportunities to move to another region because. Ukrainian teachers in university salaries, they are not very big. You can't usually find another flat, another house, and some people has economical reason to stay in Donetsk. It's very hard to answer to this question in general. I continue speak with my teachers who moved from Donetsk to Kyiv or to Vinnytsia. We have good relationships, but probably I haven't relationships with teachers who stayed in Donetsk.
Just like a quick, not a quote, but as long as I remember, I read on the website of university that stayed in Donetsk something like, yes, since 2014, our students are like really dedicated to study and are better than before. I was like, of course.
Yeah, that's a pure propaganda, but
Yeah.
of course, the same fate is with almost all universities. And now, in fact, we have like double universities. One is on the Ukrainian government-controlled area, and another one is already incorporated into the educational system of the Russian Federation, but with some limitations, of course.
I checked that like also universities have support from Russia, are going internationally for like some Olympiads and blah blah. Internationally, they mean Russia and Belarus, and I'm like, of course. And but also all you guys, you need to know that they are not how to say, admitted from international world, except Russia and its dictatorships. Milan, question to you. I know you work now in the media sector. Would you like to give some comments on how media is represented in the conflict zone, and in the not occupied territories, but next to the war line? Your opinion on the media influence there?
The access of the media in general isn't as easy as it was at the beginning, and the occupied territories, there are almost no journalists from some foreign medias. So there are only Russian medias and even media, and there are some Ukrainian media, but that are represented there, but they, in fact, they work through some informators or like this, so they don't uncover their people. So people like they work undercover, and there is more restricted, more difficult access for journalists on the other side as well. And for example, the Ukrainian government began to slow down the process of giving the accreditations of journalists to go there, and it's becoming also a problem, a kind of problem, because the situation is a bit strange. So they cannot get the access. I mean, mainly the foreign media reporters. For Ukrainians, it's a bit easier. But of course, now it's not so easy to go to the front line to shoot soldiers there.
Yeah,
they're like there.
So you talked about Russian media and like someone undercover from the Russian media. Is there something like some influence from Ukrainian side on us who lives not in the occupied areas or next to occupied areas? Because, for instance, Korniy mentioned that Ukrainian government didn't want to finance the movie because they thought it's not like patriotic, but so like this kind of team, maybe you could give some more information.
So there was a problem for several years when there was no access to the Ukrainian television, to the Ukrainian radio stations along the front line, even not, let's say, 1-2 kilometers from it, but 10 or even 15 kilometers from the line on our territory. So why? Because the reason was quite simple. Lugansk and Donetsk, these cities are quite big, and the main stations, satellites, are located there. And they used to give this signal to half of the region, and now they translate. So they have only TV from Russia or the locals. Yes, separatist channels, and on our territory, maybe only a couple of years, we have some attempts, quite slow attempts, to give this access to Ukrainian television, to Ukrainian media sphere for the residents, but it's not easy even now.
Okay, Korniy, do you want to add something?
No, probably not, because it is a good answer. And
I wanted, I understand this answer. I wanted also to ask, what about Ukrainian medias? Are they having influence on us? Are they representing a good point of view, or like the complete point of view, or why they sometimes, or if they are sometimes don't say something that is true on the war zone? Do you have some examples of that, or do you want to talk about that? Like, for instance, Korniy, they didn't want to finance the movie because it's not patriotic, but like, why? Because we could have heard that there are some Ukrainians who support these occupied territories. What was the reason?
Probably my answer will in this way, that it's very good that Ukraine is really a free country, and we have a lot of TV channels, a lot of media, and sometimes it's very good that our country is free, but of course we have many pro-Russian media, and they show this conflict in very bad way for Ukraine as a country. And of course we have a lot of good media, and they show this situation in good way for Ukrainian people. But in general, there are many cases, and I think we have to start probably another big discussion about media in Ukraine, because for this 7 year it was really a lot of many good cases and many bad cases, and I can't probably answer in this to this question in general, because I of course love to read, to watch good Ukrainian media, not pro-Russian Ukrainian media, and I like how they explain some stories about Ukrainian army, about our heroes. But if you in the evening switch on pro-Russian Ukrainian country, pro-Russian Ukrainian TV channel, you can understand that some Ukrainian military, they are very bad, and people on Donbass or this pro-Russians army, they are very good. So it's very hard discussion probably.
I would start with the questions from the chat to you, Korniy. So Svetlana is asking, how did you choose people for the interviews, and what was the opener of the conversation? Any specific question? Like, did you introduce yourself?
Probably it was not a specific question. It was probably only a specific phrase when we start to talk. I said to these people that I am from Donetsk, that I have relatives in this region, and I wanted to show what these people wanted to say. I will not cut some bad things about Ukraine if they wanted to talk, because it's really important to show true what people thinking. And how did I choose people? It was maybe not so. It was not like a casting in Vagon, because it was at night. I have maybe 2 hours before people going sleep. So I just coming to people and propose to speak about situation on Donbass, and explain that we shooting film directly here in this train. And some people of course say to me, go to hell, or some people say that okay, probably we can start, and we began our conversation. And I can say that probably one trip from Kyiv to Donbass, after one trip I usually have maybe 8 or 10 interviews. So
Anna Anisimova wants to ask a question, the quick question. What do you think if these people afraid to share their minds, especially those who live in non-government controlled territories of Ukraine, it can create some risks for them?
No, probably yes. If people living in not controlled Ukrainian territory, and if they are patriots of Ukraine,
Yeah.
maybe if they say some bad things about this LNR and DNR territories, probably it can it can make some troubles for these people. But for me, probably the most important thing was the safety of these people, and we didn't shoot this movie with hidden cameras. We always speak with people, and all probably all these people, they signed some documents that they are not disagree with this process, and if somebody don't want to talk, okay, we try to find another person, because I understand that these people, they are not going to vacation, they don't going to, I don't know, to some ocean, they going to really conflict zone. And as Milan said, that in this territory is normal type of business to catch some people, and try to make money with this process,
which is bizarre for me, and still it's crazy. And also the next question in the chat is from, is from Roman. Probably you already seen it, Korniy, it's to you. What he's talking about the movie again, and he's asking what international festivals have shown the movie. Has the Ukrainian Foundation helped you with submission to the international festivals? And do you have any estimate number of people who have already watched the movie?
Hello, Roman. It's very nice to hear you in this chat. About international festival, it's probably because of Corona crisis, it's very hard to distribute movies probably last year because a lot of festivals, they canceled because of this Corona crisis, and some festivals they going to online, and it's really hard when you have some invitations and then these invitations cancelled, and we have like today's discussion through internet. We showed this film in Italy in I forget, probably I think it was maybe 5 or 6 film festivals. A lot of festivals was in Ukraine, some festivals was in Europe, and I know that in April film will in Moscow in Russia. It's Art Doc Festival, it's big documentary film festival, and they will show this movie in Russia. And we show this movie in big international TV channel Current Time. It's like Russian speaking media, and I know that probably a lot of people watching this movie through Current Time TV channel. And right now you can legal watch this movie in Takflix. It's Ukrainian online service. Film was a couple days for some opened for some Ukrainian festivals, and film was in Ukrainian cinemas in November last year. So probably I can't say number of people who watched this movie, but I think it was not bad for this times with pandemic, because we have many ways: internet, TV, and cinemas. About Ukrainian Culture Foundation, they didn't help with submission because Ukrainian Culture Foundation is modern Ukrainian organization. They can support some art projects in films or some books, but they have a lot of maybe you can help me with this. У них много законодательных проблем, которые не позволяют им помогать оплачивать взносы на кинофестивале.
So they have a lot of law difficulties or law restrictions that are not allowing them to fundraise some projects.
Yeah, they can give you money, I don't know, for some, and you can pay this money for soundtrack to some band, but they can't give you money for some another part of your work, because it depends of some laws in Ukraine.
I wanted a quick question. You mentioned that this movie will be also shown or is already shown in Russia, in Moscow. Was it that easy?
It will be in April. In April.
Will it be that easy, or are there any restrictions from Russia law restriction?
We sent this film only to one Russian film festival. It was our position, and this one film festival is Art Doc Festival, because we respect the people who doing this festival in Baltic countries. They moved from Russia, and president of this festival is Vitaly Mansky, very famous and very good Russian film director. He is from Ukraine, and he supports this project when we producing this film. And so Art Doc Fest was only one Russian festival, and they wanted to show this film in their program in Moscow in April. I don't know how it will be. I think it will be probably offline screening in big cinemas in Moscow. They invite me for this screening, but I will not go because it was our position. We can give this movie, but nobody from our crew will go to Russia. But film will be in Russia in April.
Impressive, nice. Please do not harm people present in the movie from not controlled territories. Okay, Anna, I'll do that. Also, in case you saw the movie, Anna, for instance, you show there was like a scene you were showing the taxi driver who was bringing you to the block post, and they didn't show his face. He was it was filmed from behind. So I'm sure it will be all fine. And it's also people are on their own risk when they are signing the document that no, I'm okay to talk on the camera, etc., etc. So I think with this you kind of gave the responsibility from yourself, Korniy, to the person who was filmed. We don't have that much time. I would just quickly also read the first message question from Anna, another Anna. Like she is asking if you were inspired with the book Journey from St. Petersburg to Moscow and a story from Yerofeev, Moscow, Petushki.
Yeah, I of course I know, and I read to these books, and I think it's very interesting books, and especially by Yerofeev. But probably it was not, these books were not reference for us. I respect these books, but probably I don't think about these books when we making this movie.
Think about the movie. And the last questions, are you working for the next movie already, or maybe you have any new ideas?
Right now I'm working on a new movie. It's supported by Ukrainian, not culture foundations, but Ukrainian Film State Agency, another organization. And this movie will be about Donbass too. It will be historical documentary about very interesting period, maybe 100 or 120 years ago. In this time, Donbass as a region was developed by European by European businessmen from Germany, from England, from Belgium, from France, from all of Europe, from Western world, and it is like very interesting historical parallels that 7 years ago Donbass was against Europe, was against this Western way of Ukraine, and people wanted to say that we are from Russian world, but if we deeply jump in history, we can understand that Donbass was really developed by Western technologies and Western monies, and we wanted to probably to say to show in this film this very interesting period of Donbass, and wanted to do it in some probably entertainment way for young audience, for students. They can watch this movie probably to know some new things about Donbass.
I would love to watch the movie. That would be kind of the answer to the girl who one of the students, maybe you remember, who said Donbass was kind of feeding the whole Ukraine.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's an interesting statement. So probably that would be the answer to this girl, the movie, right?
I think this movie it can be like not second part of Train Kyiv War, but maybe in this movie people who will watch this movie, they can maybe find some answers why people in train have these ideas in head, because it's very hard because of Soviet propaganda, and Soviet time really changed history of people of this region, and we wanna to probably come back true history of Donbass in this movie.
I would love to watch the movie. We will make sure that we'll show you guys from Cinemova as well the movie. Otherwise, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm saying to you that what you learned from this 1 hour session was the personal stories and insights from Korniy and Milan. You got an introduction and the general idea about the east of Ukraine and how Germany a bit supports Ukraine. And I'm super grateful for Korniy and for Milan for your personal stories, experiences, and ideas. The next movie from Cinemova will be next month. It will be Foxter Max. It's family screening, so bring your kids and young population in front of the screens, and we'll enjoy a lot. And also like and subscribe Cinemova. And I wish you all the great evening. And thank you again, Korniy and Milan, for that you found the time to discuss the movie and your experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. That was great.